Christ came and he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So this is the path of life. He brought us a way out of death. Now, what I love is when he says in Revelation, I have the keys of death and hell. So why does he separate death and hell? In Psalms he says, have mercy upon me, O Lord. Consider my trouble, which I suffer of them that hate me. For thou hast lifted me from the gates of death. Death has gates. So there is a place where you enter gates. And that is when you step out of this life. When your life in time is over, you step through gates. And these gates is taking them to the pit. But we know that Jesus, he said, he's the way, the truth to life. Now, the people that were in the pit had a hope and they were crying. The ground is crying for his blood. Now, we need to understand that Jesus had to go through these gates to answer with his blood. He says in Psalm 107, their soul abhorred all manner of meat, and they draw near to the gates of death. Another confirmation that when you become sick and you die, sickness and sin is just all going down to death. And I just want to say that all fear is related to death. Because if you're scared of a spider, you're scared you're going to die. If you're scared of heights, you're scared you're going to die. If you're scared of eating the wrong food, you're scared actually it's going to kill you. All fear is linked and closely related to death. Now, when Jesus said, I have not given you a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind, you can just as well say, I have set you free from death, and I lead you to life. I'm the way, the truth to life. Sickness leads to death. Fear leads to death. Sin leads to death. Everything in time leads to death. Time is a day of death. But Jesus brought a day of life because God said, today I declare this is my only begotten Son. But the only begotten Son became the first begotten. And if there's a first begotten, there must be a second, a third, a fourth. I wonder how many millionth begotten I am. Because he is the way to life. In other words, he brought the day in which we can step back into life. Is this not just awesome? He says in Job 38:17, this is amazing. I just want to say here, every time you have any revelation, go check it up in Job and go check it up in Psalms. These two books carry the purposes of God. Now in Job he says, God is like actually answering Job because there was three friends and they knew all the right stuff, but they didn't make a dent because they actually took the word and turned it into their own use. This is the same what Israel did. They took the system and they just made of it what they want to. They use it when they want to. When Jesus was crucified, they came to Pilate and said, this man ought to die. Kill him. We need to kill him. He says, well, kill him. They say, no, we have a law that says you cannot kill. Well, the same law that says you cannot kill says you cannot have idols, you cannot covet. The same law says you cannot have false witnesses. What they did is they actually used the law to kill the Christ. They broke the biggest commandment. The only thing of the law they actually kept was the Sabbath day. And Jesus was the Lord of the Sabbath. So they used the rest of the law. This is listen, if the law is in your heart, you will know how to do all these things. But you have to step in Christ. You can't keep the Sabbath now and think you keep the law. You have to step into Christ. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. So you cannot use these situations and do what you want to. So this is what the friends did. Then Eliu, a young guy, the fourth man, stood up. And he said, there's a spirit in me, and I will give you understanding. And he was a picture. He was a figure of the Christ to come, which going to get the Spirit. Now, after Elihu spoke, then God started answering. He actually asked him, have you seen the rain? Do you know where the clouds are? Do you know how lightning works? And he's going through all of creation. And then he comes and he says, have the gates of death been opened to you? Or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? The gates is you have to depart from this world. The doors of the shadow of death is you enter that place that is a shadow of death. Though I go through the shadow of death, I will not fear. Job says, even there's hope for a tree. At the scent of water, it will bud again. So shall my word be. It shall do what it sent forth, like rain. I'm going to send the former and the latter rain. Oh, we've got to read all this together. And so this is very important that we actually understand the doors of death. There's gates. There's gates. Now, Jesus, he actually explained to his disciples that he's going to die. And, Peter just said, no, you're not going to go there. So this conversation all started with Jesus took them to the biggest idolatry temple found in the Roman time, right up in Caesarea Philippi. It is about, I would say, 50, 60 kilometers from Galilee. And Jesus had no business there. He broke the bread and they didn't receive it. And he took his disciples and he walked there. And he stood right in front of this temple and he said, do you see this? The gates of hell shall not prevail. Let's just read it. And Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said to him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for the Spirit has revealed this. This is the same story as in Job. There's a man, he says, that has the Spirit of the Almighty. And the Spirit of the Almighty will reveal to us. That's the fourth man, revelation. For flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. And I also say to thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. But it's the revelation of the rock on which Christ was going to build his church. What is his church? Son of man becoming son of God. So it's Son of Man, Son of God. It's a dual revelation. You cannot take it separately because 1 Corinthians 4 tells us he was the rock that followed them through the desert. There was a rock cut from the mountain. Where was the mountain? From Moses, that hit the statue of Daniel. So Christ is the rock. So he says, what does God look to? To a man that has a humble spirit and who trembles at the word. He says, if you hear my voice, you will build your house on the rock. So rock on rock. That is the house of God. Son of man, Son of God. If you do not understand the doctrine of Christ, you will never have the Father. You will never understand the purposes of God. That is Son of man, Son of God. And this is what they didn't understand. When Christ was here, he was born Son of Man and he was inaugurated Son of God. And they said, who are you? We're going to kill you. They didn't realize what they had. And here he says, if you have this, the gates of hell will not be able to come against you. What else is this? That you are sealed with the Spirit. He says, nothing shall separate you from the love of God. Now, the problem is we judge too easy. We just send everybody to hell. Hey, whoa. What did Jesus came to do? To die for people. We didn't die for people. Do you know how many people, like the man on the cross, at his last moment, he says, remember me. God says, okay. The problem is not just heaven and hell. The problem is we mix the kingdom in it. The kingdom is the work on earth, restoring the earth, because eventually this is where we're going to rule and reign. But heaven and hell, we need to understand heaven and hell. And so he says, we are sealed with the Spirit, and the gates of hell. Upon this rock will I build my church. Where you are built on the Christ, you are sealed in the Spirit. And nothing ever will separate you from the love of God. The only thing that you can separate, if you turn around, curse the Holy Spirit, go back to idol worship, totally reject God, you know what? We sit with people that just miss God and they are just living a natural life. They never enter the kingdom or possess the kingdom. And we just send them to hell. We are not to be the judge, because if you know what hell is, you will never send anybody to hell. Anyway, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Psalm 24. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face. Heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool. Where is the house you built for me? Where is my rest? Then he says, I look to the man that has a humble spirit and who trembles at my word. Now, Psalm 102 talks about this generation coming. There's a generation that's going to step up into it. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob. Lift up your heads. Look at this man. What a prophet he was. He says, lift up your heads, all you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors. What's happening here? The King of Glory is coming in. What is he coming in? Because the ground where these people are kept cries for blood. What is he coming? He's giving the blood and say, you are free. What is he doing? He's preaching the gospel to them and say, I am the true light. You're sitting in darkness. You're going to see the light now. Let the King of Glory come in. Who is this King of Glory? The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle. In the Crusader time, they used these psalms and they said, God has made us strong for the battle. He's not talking about you to fight. The kingdom can't be two worlds. He's talking about the Christ that nothing could withstand him. Can you imagine what happened in that underworld when the gates, he didn't even have to knock, just his voice, it's like automatic doors, they just like crumbled. He says, lift up your heads, all your gates, and lift them up, everlasting doors, and the King of Glory shall come in. Who is this King of Glory? The Lord of hosts, the Lord strong and mighty. We read these things and we just don't sort of understand what we really are reading. But Jesus Christ went right down.